Center for Healthy Sex is very proud to present Dr. Sharon Cohen, and she's going to deliver her lecture, Doing Relationships Right, the challenge of balancing the masculine and feminine energies.
Thank you so much for being here. And you know, when he asked me to be here, I was like, I wonder if anyone's going to show up for this. They've had such amazing speakers here, and so when they asked me to do this, I was very, very honored. So my moniker that I go by is Dr. Sharon, because I don't know if you know this. You know, my name is Dr. Sharon Cohen, but there are a lot of Dr. Cohens out there in the world. And so there's actually a lot of Dr. Sharon Cohens out in the world, so I kind of just decided to go by Dr. Sharon. That's my little gimmick. So let me tell you a little bit about how I got to where I am today and doing what it is that I'm doing, because he's right, my background really is in the psychiatric world. I met the man of my dreams at age 30. I moved to Austin, Texas at that time and had lived there for about 8 months when I met him. I had just come back from visiting Newport and had told my mom and my girlfriend that I was really kind of so bummed. I'd been there for 8 months and hadn't met really that many girlfriends. I was getting my PhD, and I definitely hadn't met anyone that I was interested in dating. And that was on a Wednesday. And I met this guy on a Saturday. And it was just like, oh, like, there you are. There's the other piece of the puzzle. It just fit. There was nothing desperate about it. There was nothing, you know, crazy and weird about it. It was just like, there you are. And it was just perfect. And so we started dating, and you know, the next time I talked to my parents, I mentioned something about my boyfriend, and they were just like, "You're what?" I mean, I'm not actually sure, the guys that I had dated before in my life, I'm not actually sure I'd actually used that phrase boyfriend, because I was kind of private about my life with my family. And so they were like, wait, what does this guy want from you? It's an interesting phrase to hear from your parents. So we started dating, and everything seemed to be going great. But what I didn't know was that he wasn't showing me everything about himself, because at the time that I met him, he was looking for a job. He had just moved back. He was from Austin. He had just moved back to Austin, and since he was looking for a job, he was doing things a little bit differently. One of his friends actually had said to me something along the lines of, wow, he seems to be really settled down since he's met you. So, and I had asked him some questions about, you know, I worked at a psych hospital, and I was working with chemical dependency, so I'd asked him questions like, so do you smoke pot? You know, he said, you know, occasionally. Well, from a non-pot smoker, occasionally to me means, you know, 2 to 3 times a year. And he wasn't smoking pot when I met him because he was looking for a job. Well, to a pot smoker, occasionally ultimately meant like 1 to 3 times a day. But that didn't really come out until maybe like 5 months into our relationship. But at that point, you know, since we had met and it felt so right, he had bought me a ring like 1 week into our relationship, held off on giving it to me until 2 weeks into our relationship. That ring was on my finger. And we were already, you know, hooked. We were I don't know, you know, oxytocin bonding. I don't know if any of you know about that, but like I was bonded to this guy. This was a done deal. So as time wore on, you can imagine what happened. Not only was the pot smoking a thing, but the alcohol was a thing as well. And so depending on how much pot he was smoking, maybe the alcohol was going down. Depending on how much alcohol he was drinking, perhaps the pot smoking was going down. But there was definitely a correlation there. And ultimately, I called my therapist here, who I hadn't talked to in a very long time, and about at 9 months, and I said, you know, I just think that at 9 months I should know whether or not I'm going to marry this guy. And he gave me some really wise advice. He said, Sharon, you don't need to know today. You just need to let the relationship unfold in front of you. Very wise advice. And so I relaxed. And I did. I just let the relationship unfold in front of me. And as you might imagine, as it unfolded, I knew that this was not the man for me. And so it didn't work out. So I had some magical thinking going on in my 30s. I just assumed, however, that it would work out, that I would get married and I would have kids, because it would just work out. That's how things go. It seems like it works out for everybody. And I'm not super focused. Like my life, the way I make decisions in my life, I just kind of meander and something works out. And so it was just going to work out that I was going to find someone and get married. Well, I met some really nice guys and I was having a good time with them. They were really wonderful. However, they weren't guys that necessarily I was going to get married to. So by the time that I decided to move back to California, I was 40 years old, it hadn't worked out. So I did something different than what I had done before. I had heard of Pat Allen and I decided, well, you know, if he's interested in her, like I'm gonna go check her out and see what she has to say. So I sat in on one of her sessions and I found her to be so interesting and her thinking to be so in alignment with a lot of things that I was already interested in. I had already done a lot of Jungian work in the past. I'm a huge fan of Thomas More, Care of the Soul, Soulmate, Soul of Sex, all of that stuff that he had already written back in the 80s probably. She's into the transactional analysis, which is how you use your words in interaction with someone else, in the games that you play. That affects all of your relationships. She also uses cognitive behavioral therapy. You have a feeling, you think, you act, or you have a feeling, you react, and then you think later, oh my God, why did I eat that, drink that, sleep with that, you know, something like that. And then her own form of therapy, which is androgynous semantic realignment, which is, androgynous is the masculine and feminine energy. Semantic is using your words and then realign them so that it's like a car. You realign your car so that it doesn't lean to one side or the other. So I sat in that night and listened to her, and it just made sense to me, and I knew something was off in alignment in my world. And so I started to go to her school and work with her, and found out that I was completely out of alignment. My world was out of alignment. I was out of alignment. It obviously started early, but at that point I was just obviously leaning all towards my masculine. I was not building up on my feminine energy at all, and I needed to get back in balance. So part of that was needing to feed my feminine part, taking some time every day to get body centered, be that yoga, going down to the beach, doing something to feed my feminine spirit. Because what was I doing? I was just working, and it was just, it was like all my nerves were just raw. And I'm a really sensitive person, but I just wasn't taking care of me. So I had learned really early on from my dad, who's a wonderful, protective, caring person, but what he didn't know to do, he didn't know how to cherish my feelings. He didn't teach me that, he was always trying to logic me out of things. And so, for instance, when I was 8 years old, he gave me this little placard that said, "Think happy." And the thing is that even at 8 years old, I knew that there was something wrong with that feelings are non-negotiable. And you can't think happy. You feel happy. You feel happy, and then you think something, or you feel sad and then you think something, like I'm going to do something about this, and then you do something. So my dad was logical. He didn't know how to cherish my feelings. The boyfriend, he was knocking out, when he was getting drunk or smoking pot, he was knocking out the logical left lobe of his brain when he was drinking or using. And so he was becoming a girl. He was becoming feminine at that time. So his feelings needed to be cherished. So I was recapitulating the whole father thing with him. And so I wasn't getting my feelings cherished in that relationship either. He was giving to me and protecting me in so many ways, providing for me in so many ways, but he wasn't cherishing my feelings either. So I was recapitulating my relationship with him. So now I'm recognizing that, and I'm realizing I've got to change the way that I'm living my life. So although when we're at work, we're in masculine mode, I've recognized that in my private life, I have to do things differently. And because of the changes that I've made, I'm now attracting people in my world who want to care for me, protect me, take care of my feelings, because of the transformation that I've made in the work that I've done on me. And probably one of the most amazing things that's happened to me is sharing this information with my family. You know, it's one thing to make changes with new people in your life, but when you make changes with people who've known you your whole life, making that change is sometimes the most dramatic. Because just recently, my dad said something to me about, like, I kind of recognize, Sharon, that you buckle under pressure, and I want to do what I can to protect you and to take care of you. I don't want to put any more pressure on you, and I'm here to help you. And it was like, light bulb, like, you just said that you are recognizing my feelings. And it was, I don't think I've ever heard him say that before. And it was mind-blowing to me. So the fact that where I started to where it is now with my family, and changes in my mom, in the way we interact as well, it's been so transformational that that's what I want to help people do in their life. And so that's one part of it. And then the other thing is that when we're born, when we come out of the birth canal, we are given some innate human rights, the right to be you, feel you, think you, share you exactly as you are. But when we're born, immediately parents, siblings, schools, teachers, religious institutions, society start throwing these unconscious, sometimes overt, sometimes covert messages to strip away, you know, don't be you, don't grow up, be an adult, be a child, you know, all these things, these messages, and they take away those innate rights. So part of what I do as well is to help people get back to be you, be exactly who you're supposed to be, feel exactly who you're supposed to, exactly how you're supposed to feel, think the way you're supposed to think, because this life script that you've been living isn't yours. It's not yours. Let's get back to who you're supposed to be. That's what's happened in my world, and that's what I do to help other people. So, so that's what's happened, and for me, I want to give that back. I just want to say that I've given you guys a feedback form at the back of your thing, and there's a special offer coming at the end. It's going to be for some of you, it's not going to be for some of you. But I just want to let you know that's coming. Also, I have a raffle at the end, so if you want to get involved with that, there's a little thing on there for a Starbucks gift card. So if you want in on that, make sure you fill that out and hand it in. And if you guys, I think there's two up here that might not have one, and there's on other chairs there will be one. Okay, so let's get to the talk. Has anybody else had that experience where somebody, you met somebody and you thought they were one person, and then they showed up to be someone different? Right? Okay, so I'm not alone on that, right? No. So disheartening. So disheartening. Okay. Okay. So doing relationships right. Okay. I think what's happened is it's the challenge of balancing the masculine and feminine energies. Something's happened over the past 50 years. So great. Women's lib, right? So great. If you look back at the 1920s versus now, so many wonderful things have happened because of women's lib. However, there's some things that have kind of gotten a little confusing because of it. Yes, we're in the workplace. Actually, more women than men are graduating from college, are in master's programs, are keeping their jobs. So women are actually doing better than men in a lot of arenas right now. However, the difficulty is that it's really caused some problems in the home relationship, in the male-female relationship. So, let me throw it out there. What do you think it is that's making relationships so difficult to keep, to either find and or maintain these days? Any thoughts on that? Yeah. Time. Okay, so just like lack of time. Okay.
Stress. I find often that people don't get each other.
So there's just like
they talk along each other instead of really at each other.
So talking at each other, I like it. Don't get each other. Okay. Anyone else? Yeah.
In terms of communication, people are afraid to really say what they actually feel.
Okay, so don't say what they mean or mean what they say. You know what we call that?
Lack of intimacy.
Yeah, lack of intimacy. Let me, so that's actually like one of the games is that if this is the social level of speech and this is the psychological level of speech, if you say what you mean and mean what you say, it looks like that. It's a straight arrow. But if you're not saying what you mean and not meaning what you say, then there's a hitch in the arrow right there, and that's where the game is played. So for instance, if you say something like, I really like your hair today. What does that mean? It's like, your hair looks like crap every other day. You know, you don't think about it, but it's like, wait, what does that mean? Like, I really like your hair today. Or your makeup. Here's a better one. The hair thing is kind of hard because sometimes we struggle with our hair and sometimes it does just look better one day versus the other.
Right.
Actually, yeah, with hair day.
Yeah, with the hair day. How about this one?
Hair day. Your makeup looks really nice today. That's one where it's like, the guys are like, what? I don't get it. But it's like, your makeup, like, what did I do today versus other days? And you really start like going back in your mind, like, what did it look like yesterday? Like, didn't I do just the exact same thing? And you start like backing it up in your mind. What did she mean by that? It's not just a straightforward compliment. There's something there. And that's the hitch in the little arrow there. And there's something that's meant there that wasn't said. Do you mean what you say and say what you mean?
Okay, so what, how do you, I get that, because I grew up like around masters of that, but how would you say it straight up and down?
You look great.
Okay.
You're looking great.
Okay.
You look fresh. You look fantastic. You know, just leave out the today.
I mean, could you also then say your makeup looks great and leave out the time specific today?
I just think it's cordoning off that it looks great today. It like takes that, like it makes it sound like you're just look like crap every other day, but wow, you really did something today that like away from every other day. Every other day you look like caca, but today you look good.
So like today you cleaned up well.
You cleaned up well.
It's like the qualifier.
It's a qualifier.
It confuses you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, anything else that you think that makes doing relationships right? Yeah.
Just coming off of that exact circumstance, I think it would be really helpful if the person receiving that fake compliment can feel comfortable immediately asking what they actually mean.
Yeah.
To like actually have a dialogue about that. If they do feel uncomfortable about a comment like that, to not just let it let it sit and then not talk about it until way later, then it's a bigger problem than it actually is.
Definitely.
Like just actually converse, and then have the person who made the comment also not be weird if they say, "Why did you say that?"
Right.
Just again, communication.
Yeah. No. Like I really appreciate that you think my makeup looks nice today. However, I feel kind of uncomfortable. Like you're saying something that you don't mean. What did you mean by that? Something like that. Yeah. Absolutely.
I'd say inauthenticity. I mean, if you're trying to be who you think others want you to be, how you wish to be perceived, whatnot, so you're not bringing the real you to the game.
Who is the real you? Do you even know who the real you is? A lot of people, they're so used to having a mask on, they don't even know who the real you is. And actually that's part of what I was kind of talking about is if you've grown up being this, for women, kind of what I was saying, being this sort of tough, guarded woman because you were brought up to not show your feelings. That was actually one of the things that my very first therapist had said to me. Go around and ask all of your best friends if you're a private person or you're a public person. If they think you're very open or if they think you're closed off. I'm like, oh my God, they're so going to say that I'm open. We always talk about feelings and stuff. And so I went around to all of them, my best friend, a friend of mine since kindergarten, and my best guy friend, and they're all like, oh no, you're really private. I'm like, what? They're like, yeah, you talk about our stuff. You're really great with that. We really love you for that. However, you never talk about your stuff. And my brother had told me, I think I haven't mentioned this, my brother told me in 8th grade, don't let people see you weak or vulnerable or crying because then they'll take advantage of you. I learned very early on. I grew up with 2 older brothers, a dad who only had a brother. I now have 5 nephews. There's a lot of testosterone in my world. And I learned very good how to be a boy. Yes.
2 things. Technology.
Yes.
And families that have 2 working caregivers. So attachment issues resulting from that.
I love it. Yeah. Attachment issues are so huge. It's been a whole session talking about that. I love talking about attachment issues. The technology is a big thing, and we're going to touch on that in a few minutes. Yeah.
And also being very future focused rather than present focused.
Talk a little bit more about that.
So just, thinking about what you're going to do next, or, being very goal oriented instead of like moment by moment awareness of what's going on in your body and in your
Right.
mind.
So you're not even present, like when you're on a date, you're not even here, you're going to Z.
Right.
And like, I wonder if I'm gonna marry this guy, versus just, am I just enjoying this moment right now? Do I want to get to the next date versus do I want to marry him? Because oftentimes, like, no, I don't know that I want to marry this guy, but like, do I want to spend another couple hours with him? That's a whole different question.
Right.
Right? I might be willing to spend another couple hours with him, but I don't know that I want to marry him. And if I'm asking myself if I want to marry him, then the answer is going to be no. But do I want to spend another couple hours with him? Yeah, the answer there might be yes. And so we're like making premature decisions. Yeah, I think that's a really good one.
Also, coming off the future focus, understanding that people don't necessarily want the same thing in terms of end game of a relationship to begin with. In terms of like, going towards marriage, 2.5 kids, white picket fence, like people want different things and have to be able to talk about that.
And let it be known. Letting it be known up front. A lot of people aren't doing that. They're not verbalizing that, and it's like they're keeping it. It's not that they're not necessarily on purpose keeping it to themselves. They're just not letting it be known. They're just like, well, she's not asking or he's not asking, so they're not letting it be known.
So I'd say fantasy projections and, being what the other person wants you to be. Well, I guess that goes with authenticity.
No, but I love the fantasy. Yes, definitely. But fantasy projection, absolutely, because when you meet someone and
you're the best behavior.
Yeah, the best behavior thing, and you're also, when you meet someone and you think like, wow, I'm really, really intrigued by this person, and you're just putting all of what you think is perfection on that person, and that's what projection is and falling in love right away is you're projecting all of the things that you want onto them, and it's not reality. It's not reality. A lot of people who do that, they're projecting whatever it is that they want. Love addicts do that. They project what they want on that person so that they can, chase after them because that's what they want. But it's not real. It's just a fantasy. Okay, good. I think that's a great place to start. All of these are very true, and let me talk about this. In 2020, the World Health Organization estimates that depression is going to be the second leading cause of illness. The second leading cause of illness. Wow, that's depressing. Not only that, it's more deadly than obesity.
Second leading cause of
Illness. And social isolation and loneliness is more deadly than obesity. Do we hear a lot about obesity in the media?
Yes.
Do we hear a lot about loneliness in the media?
No.
Right? What's up with that? Why do you think we don't hear about loneliness in the media?
No one wants to hear it. No one wants to hear it.
No one wants to hear it. No one wants to admit to it. How comfortable am I standing up here and admitting to you, I moved home to my hometown and I didn't have any friends and I was lonely and depressed. It's not fun to admit that. It's embarrassing to admit that. It's humiliating to admit that. But there it is. Go ahead.
I also don't think they fully understand it or know how to describe it.
Right. I think that's really true. It's really true.
And
What
yet
is
it's such a common theme in therapy for patients. That's like probably the most, more than like death, more than like
Right.
anything, or being in a relationship or not. That it always comes down to just I don't want to be alone.
Right.
Loneliness.
It is.
Such
It
a
is.
common-
It is so common. Yeah.
Well, I think that it is talked about in relation to elderly people.
Right.
Older people, where it's said, you have to have people around you or be involved in something or you'll die quicker. that's kind of acceptable.
Right.
But I think now it's much worse, like with social media, Facebook. Think how lonely people feel, like in high school or something. Or
Right.
college, when all their friends have gone to this party, and they haven't,
And it's
they're not being
blasted.
invited, and,
Right.
you know, or they don't have a lot of friends.
Right. Right,
Much
because
more
you can
difficult.
really see what's going on. I look at my nephew, I have 5 nephews, so I look at one of my nephews and his high school. I had a great high school experience. I loved high school. A lot of people hated high school. I loved high school. When I look at what he did in his high school life, he's now in college. I'm like, dude, rocked high school, like way bigger than I ever did. And it's like, wow, if he had been like my high school buddy, I would think that my high school life was so lame in comparison to his. If I was watching his versus mine, it would have made me feel bad about my high school experience. And I loved my high school. Sorry?
Era.
It was an era, yeah, different era for sure. So, so loneliness is on the same. It's comparable in mortality rate to smoking, and it's twice as deadly as obesity. Twice as deadly as obesity, and yet I know that the First Lady's platform has been childhood obesity, which I think is super, super important. But I think we're really missing something by not talking about this social isolation and loneliness. I think it's really something that needs to be dealt with.
Because it seems like with the obesity of the children, that you wonder about the loneliness of the child,
the kid,
of
sure,
the kid, yeah.
Sure. I mean,
It's a great
Vicious
place
circle.
to. It's a great way to make fill yourself up, so you have company
absolutely, absolutely. I mean,
when you feel empty.
Yeah, and actually, you know, when you're eating as an adult, what are you doing? You're soothing yourself with food. It's a way of having like oral sex. If you're not getting fed, you know, by getting touched or whatever, you go to food oftentimes. So it's not.
And there was this movement, like with, you know, Mrs. Obama focusing on the obesity, but not focusing on the underlying trauma of being obese.
Right. Yeah, so it's definitely a big issue. So we're feeling this huge lack of you know, with this huge amount of loneliness and connection. And so what are people doing? They're waking up and they're looking at their phone first thing in the morning. They're looking at, literally, they before they get out of bed, they're looking at their phone to look at Facebook as a way of connecting, right? But are they connecting?
Yeah.
So there was a study done on Facebook, and the more time you spend on Facebook, the less happy you feel. Now, interestingly enough, it did depend. There was a slight. It depended slightly on how you interact on Facebook. There was a slight effect based on that. If you interacted on Facebook sort of a more passive way, sort of like in a lurking way, where you maybe just passively liked things and were just looking, your happiness level was definitely lower. But if you were acting in a more out loud way, like for instance, one of my nephews just did the Tough Mudder out in Temecula this past weekend. And so I wrote on his wall, hey, how'd the Tough Mudder go? And he wrote back, yeah, it was good, it was fun, whatever. Because we had that conversation on the wall out loud, and 2,000 other people might have read it because he's young and he's got a lot of friends, then that's a more active way of interacting on Facebook. And so supposedly our interaction, we are having a better interaction on Facebook, not quite as lonely of an interaction. We're more likely to have a better interaction on Facebook. However, I can tell you personally, for me, the more screen time I have, be it Facebook, any social media, the computer, the television, my phone, I can go into my phone, like getting rid of emails because I don't want to sit in front of my computer. So if I'm getting a coffee or yogurt, I'm a bit of a frozen yogurt addict, then I'm deleting emails off of that. Then my level of happiness or joy is inversely correlated with that, for sure. So I definitely have to pay attention to that and manage it. Yes?
Do you know if this is true? It's something I heard that when people look at Facebook, it's also, that they see, it's an illusion of, people just put up their happy pictures.
Oh.
So it tends to get a person to compare themselves like, shit, I don't look that happy, or my kids don't look like that.
For
my
sure.
house isn't that clean.
For sure, because who wants to, like, hey, you know,
I
watching
look
another
ugly right now.
Yeah, watching another episode of the Mindy Project, you know, like you're not going to do that. You're going to
Studies have showed that.
I don't know if studies show that, but I've definitely, I mean, I've talked to my friends about it because people will say to me, oh my God, it looks like you're traveling all the time, you're always going to concerts, this and that, and it's like, huh.
Right.
Well, it's not my life, you know, but it's
That's
what.
the only thing you put on there.
Yeah. Like, what else? Like, seriously, I'm not going to put the other stuff.
Exactly.
I'm just, it's not interesting.
It's not a representation of reality.
It's not a representation of reality at all.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
You definitely want to share. It's the image you want to portray.
Well, it's just, it is the image I want to portray, but it's also, I'm not going to put stuff up there that isn't
That makes
interesting.
Right.
Like, if it's not interesting, why would I put it up? Yeah.
That's the discrepancy or the confusion I have is that it's not a normal interaction, right? So what is it? Because I'm not the kind of person that would say, oh, I was at the theater, or oh, I was just at the opera. But people do, and it's just like I don't get what role it's playing.
Or you don't care, maybe. You don't care to know. I don't care to know the movies or
It's creating this social phenomenon that feels like just more lonely
What's
inside.
interesting about that though now is that there's a lot of like whether it's a restaurant or a theater or whatever that actually offer incentives for like checking in at where you're at.
Oh yes,
like you know, just a few days
credits.
ago I was at Gyukaku and it's like check in for free edamame. Sure, I'll check in. And I like what did I put in the post? Free edamame. Like there was actually a purpose behind it, but a lot of places are doing that because it's publicity.
Right,
you know?
absolutely.
Like, and it is, you know, it is kind of the thing that you want to say, like, oh yeah, I'm not at home, you know, just watching TV. I'm out. You know,
Right, I'm out having a good time. My life is
I
big.
think it's also maybe a way of connecting.
Right.
I don't know how to use Facebook. I should learn. But all I know how to do is touch the like thing. But I don't know.
You must be really happy.
Right.
Thanks. I feel happy. Thank you. But I think it's a way of people also saying, like, here I am if you want to come. Like, I'm at this restaurant. I'm going to go to this show. But when people say things, I mean, people in my intimate life know me, so they know not to reach out to me there because I've heard things all the time, like, why didn't you show up? I was on Facebook, and I'm like, what? I don't, hold out, I don't know how to look that up. So some people, I think, also assume, like, I'm going to reach out to someone this way, and everyone knows how to do that. But
Right.
they don't.
Yeah, no, absolutely. People definitely will do that. Yeah.
I think also it depends on your mental state using Facebook. So if you're in a pretty good mental state and you're connecting with people and you're interacting, then it's okay. But if you're like, I'm comparing my life and I'm not happy then I think that's what causes the misery. But I think if a person's in a pretty good state of mind and then they use Facebook, it can really enhance their life.
Right. For
I
sure.
also think if you have family and friends, some of mine are out of the country, it's a really great way where I can just quickly look at what they are doing.
Yeah. Did you see?
Yeah, I think there's a generational divide around that. I have kids in their 20s, and for their generation, it's just normal. It's just how you talk to a bunch of people without having to waste a lot of time talking to a bunch of people.
Right.
And everybody knows that everybody only puts up good stuff.
Right.
Basically, unless they're looking for empathy, right?
Right.
But otherwise, everybody knows you only put up your best pictures, and everybody knows that.
Right.
So it's not even an issue. It's not an issue, and they approach it very differently because of that. It's just a quick way. We're busy. A quick way of connecting with lots of people. This is where I'm going to be. You want to show up? Show up. Everybody dates in groups. They don't even date individually. That's how it is.
Right. No, absolutely. I think it's definitely got an age bracket thing to it. Absolutely.
Although I will add that people announce when people pass away.
Yeah.
And then
but that's
you find out
for
what
empathy.
funerals are, and you find out when people.
Yeah,
so I will say that
It's
it's a really
coordination.
it's not always good. It's not always on good stuff, but it's informative. So it's not that I don't. It's not really always good news.
Right.
Like I had a really tough week recently, really tough, and I mentioned that I had a really tough week. I didn't say what it was. I didn't whatever, but it was like,
like got a lot of support.
Yeah.
So it's good. Like there is definite value to it. There's a way to get a lot of good, valuable connection through it. But despite all of the good, valuable things, people are feeling a lot of disconnection and social isolation and loneliness, and people are feeling the need for connection, they're craving the intimacy, they're craving love, they're in a lot of pain. And so when they come to see me, these are the things I hear. I've had a long series of repeated relationship failures. I just don't want to do it like I've done it before. I want to do it different this time. We got along so well in the beginning, right? This is we got along so well in the beginning, and then I don't know just what happened. And then the interesting one on the bottom here is mostly from men. I can't decide between the two women I'm dating, and I'm not sure either one is right for me. And this is a very specific one. I'll just talk about it really briefly. And so he was conquered by the women. He was chased, and so he sat back and he's like, this is cool, this is easy. These women are nice, they're pretty. And so then when it's time to make a decision, maybe the women are saying, okay, I want a decision. Are we going to get serious or not? And he's like, I'm not sure. Like, I'm not really, like, you're not necessarily what I want. Well, the reason they're not necessarily what he wants is because he didn't go after them. He didn't chase them. He didn't conquer them. And then the women are upset because they didn't sit and vet the suitor. They went after what they wanted. But they didn't wait to hear, is this a guy who wants what I want? If they want, now if this is a hookup, if this is just like, hey, let's just go have some fun sex and like just have a good time, great. But if they were looking for a long-term relationship, they didn't wait to hear if that's what he wanted. So that's how this relationship ends up being in my office. The girls didn't wait to hear and didn't ask for any sort of agreement. Like, okay, what I want is a long-term, committed, monogamous relationship that's continuous and with an exclusive, and is that what you want as well? Because if it's not, then this isn't a relationship that's right. So they ended up in this sort of situation. Okay, so usually when I'm talking to a lay audience, the next question I ask is sort of one of those, it's like the childhood question. You remember when kids would say to each other, your epidermis is showing, and like nobody knew what they were saying, and they would kind of start covering up like uncomfortably. And so the question is who here is androgynous? Out in the lay world, people don't really know that word. And so, again, they kind of look around, they're like, I don't know if that's true. But I'm using it in Jungian's term. And Jungian means it in, like, probably a way to explain would be to say it's a psychological hybrid of masculine and feminine energy. So we're all androgynous. So women, we are yin on the outside. We're soft. We're open. We're built to receive. And we have this hard, masculine, animus soul. And you'll never know a man as tough as a woman inside, right? We're bitches. We are so mean. It's why women are so catty and mean to each other. It's usually a man who is saying to a woman, why do you guys have to be so mean to each other, right? You'll hear that all the time. Guys don't understand the meanness, mean girl situation. They don't. Women will walk over a dead guy to get to the next one. And I think that's really an adaptive thing. If you look back on caveman days, if the guys went out for the hunt and the man didn't come back, then she couldn't be pining away after that guy. She had to go find another man to take care of her, to go hunt for her meat, and to take care of her and her children. So she had to develop that tough internal soul. That internal soul of hers is also what anchors her in her strength to say no to anything that's illegal, immoral, or unethical, or anything that displeases her. There's a play written by Aristophanes called Lysistrata, a Greek play. And it was about a war in Troy that was going on. And the women wanted the war to be over. And so they said to the men, no more food, no more sex, no more pillows on your bed. That war ended, what do you think? 3 days. 3 days. So what do you think would happen if the women of the world banded together today And to any man that was doing anything that was illegal, immoral, or unethical, how quick do you think that we could clean up what was going on in the world today? You know? It's something to really consider. But that's not what's happening. That's not what's happening. So men, on the other hand, they're hard on the outside. You know, they've got this protective layer, but they've got this sensitive soul. You'll never know a woman as sensitive as a man inside, right? Right? It's why, you know, they'll cry at the national anthem. They're sensitive enough to be there when you're putting the dog down. They're just so much more tender than we are. It's why they don't risk falling in love as easily as women do. It's much more painful for them when it doesn't work out. So the yin energies are passive, patient, and vulnerable. And their actions are to be receptive, be available, and be respectful of those who cherish their feelings. The yang energies are to compete, conquer, and control. And their actions are to give, protect, and cherish. Who here thinks that nurturing is a feminine characteristic? Yeah, nurturing is actually masculine, because if you think about it, nurturing is like what a mother does, right? But when you're mothering, you're actually in your masculine energy, because you're mothering to a baby that is totally yin, to take care of itself. So it's actually a time in a couple's life where you see that a lot of couples have a hard time, because the mom is having to be masculine energy towards the baby, but the husband wants her to be feminine energy towards him. So she has to know how to switch energies, because the husband's like, hey, wait, you know, I want you to respect me, and I'm the one who's still in control of the family, and you're trying to tell me to put on a jacket, and you're trying to cut my food? Stop it. You know? So it's a situation there. That's why a lot of young couples have a really difficult time at that point in their relationship. We're talking just about an individual. Yang takes care of yin. If I'm by myself, does it make sense that the yang side of me, the give, protect, cherish, the compete, conquer, and control side of me, has to be at the forefront so that I can get out in the world, make money, provide for myself in order for me to make it out there in the world? Because otherwise, if I have too much yin going on, I'm passive, I'm patient, I'm vulnerable, then I'm not going to get my ass up out of bed and be going out for a job, going out on interviews, doing what I need to do in order to make it out there in the world. I'm going to be waiting around for somebody else to take care of me. So I have to have my yang be at the forefront. However, when I integrate with somebody else, when I'm going to get into a relationship, then there's only so much masculine energy a relationship can handle, right? It's kind of like there's 4 voices in a relationship. Masculine on both sides and feminine on both sides. It's the same concept though. Yang takes care of yin. So you can only have one person be more yang and one person be more yin. It's like the concept of responsibility in a relationship. Did anybody hear some of the movie Date Night? No. You did? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you remember at the very end when Steve Carell is talking to Tina Fey in the car, and he's saying to her, she's like freaking out, and he's saying to her, you know what? If you would just let me do some of the things that you're doing, if you would just let me take over some of the like chores, you didn't use that word, that you're doing, I could do them and you wouldn't feel so overwhelmed, and we would have a better relationship, because there's only so much responsibility that a relationship has. Taking care of kids, unloading the dishwasher, whatever it is. But if a guy loads the dishwasher and the woman comes over and moves things around and reloads it, the guy's gonna go, what the hell am I doing this for? You do it. So he starts being under-responsible and she starts being over-responsible. So that's the ball of responsibility. Now, it's the same with masculine and feminine energy. There's only so much masculine and feminine energy that's available in a relationship. If if you're both too much masculine energy, what's going to happen is you're going to be banging up against each other. If there's too much feminine energy in the relationship, you're going to be either too passive, you're not going to move forward in the relationship, or there's going to be too much emotionality. I had this great couple that I loved working with. They were kind of balanced, they kind of had both a lot of masculine and feminine energy, but they both leaned a little bit more towards the feminine energy. And so what ended up happening was that as we worked together, it became obvious that they both kind of wanted the other one to be the provider. And the guy kind of wanted her to work as, support for her in her career, and she didn't want that. She knew that if he was working to support her career, that she was ultimately going to be the main provider. And so, no hard feelings. They both really liked each other, but they both kind of just became apathetic about the relationship, because you need the sexual polarity of the masculine and feminine energy in order to keep the sizzle there, and they just didn't have that. They just ended up not having that. So, it ended up that the relationship didn't work out, no hard feelings, and it just, we worked through it. But that's kind of what it is with the masculine and feminine energy. So a good way of figuring this out is to ask, who wants to be respected for their thinking, or who wants to be cherished for their feelings first? Now, this is not a hard question for me. I can tell you that, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how much respect I've gotten, throughout the day. When I go home, I want to be cherished for my feelings. I want to be, if I don't feel good about something, I want to be hugged. I want to be, that's going to help me feel heard and understood and loved. That's just who I am. I'm sensitive, and that's what I want. Yeah.
You said respected for feelings or cherished?
Oh, respected for thinking. I might have said it wrong. Thinking or cherished for feelings. I could have said it backwards.
I might have it backwards.
And so that's me. But for a lot of women, that's a hard question because they've worked really hard to get where they are, and so they want to be respected for their thinking. So let me ask here: anyone here, do you know that you want to be respected for your thinking first? Men and women. Do you know if you want to be respected for your thinking first over being cherished for your feelings? And the other one is to be cherished for your feelings over respect for your thinking.
Can it vary?
Yeah, you can work that out. If you're working with someone, but that's a hard thing to work out because you're always having to work your communication where you're going back and forth all the time, and it's you have the definite. You have to work on that because you're changing your communication all the time back and forth. Where you're saying I think, and the other person has to respond I feel, and you have to go back and forth. Yeah.
Wouldn't you say though that if someone cherishes your feelings, they would also respect your thoughts, your thinking. Whereas if somebody respects, say, your intelligence, that person doesn't necessarily attuned to your feelings.
What ends up happening is there was a study done by Harvard that David Buss looked at. 10,000 people were interviewed, and what they found was that 2/3 of men mate and marry for sexual security and sexual and sensual security at home.
Sexual what?
And sensual security at home. 1/3 of men mate and marry for financial security and social status. On the other hand, 2/3 of women mate and marry for financial security and social status, and 1/3 of women mate and marry for sexual and sensual security.
Woo! Implying those are the only reasons to get married?
No. But as far as those two qualities, and so what that means is so for the person who wants the respect, and I'm using, it's not necessarily him or her because obviously there's the gay and lesbian situation, but my masculine energy, if he wants to be respected for his thinking, then he cherishes her feelings, right? And then as he cherishes her feelings, that's how he feels loved. When he gets respected for his thinking, that's how he feels loved. If you ask men who want to feel respected, they feel loved. And then when they pass that back over, that's how she feels respected. So it's a big cycle here, and then it's just a big love fest.
I mean, it's sort of like the same thing that men fall in love with the women they're attracted to, and women fall in love with the men that they. Women fall in love with the men that they. It's men fall in love with the women they're attracted to, and women
grow attracted to the ones they fall in love with.
Men they look up to.
What was it? I'm going to get it right in a second. It's men fall in love with the women they're attracted to, and women learn to be attracted to who they fall in love with.
Right,
exactly.
Yeah. Right.
That's the
right.
That's how it's supposed to go. So it's sort of the same thing.
So I'm going to invite you guys to fill out those feedback forms, because I have down there this offer for a free consultation. And I don't normally do that, but I do have a couple of openings available, and the reason I'm doing it is because it's just like, you guys are the ones that work so hard, right? We're in this field, we work so hard, and having gone through what I went through, I just have such heart open for people who are looking for love in their life, that I just wanted to make that offer. And if it's something that calls to you and it feels right for you, then just go ahead and fill that out, and we're going to collect those, and then also be pulling the raffle out of that. So I'll be looking forward to talking to you if that's something that you want. So we only have a couple more minutes.
Can I ask a question about the respect and cherish?
Yeah.
I have a situation where the guy goes, I like your ideas. And that makes me all confused. Because of course I'm I love to be masculine and be teach and preach, but it's not, I know enough of what you're talking about that it's not the healthiest for me and my biology. So what do you do? Is that when you balance it back and forth? Or
right.
When you're an intelligent woman, which I bet everyone in this room is, how do you allow yourself to have ideas, and how do you let the men think you're smart? How do you deal with that?
Right. Well, do you want to be the feminine energy, or do you?
Yes, I
you
want to
do.
be the feminine
You want to be
energy.
the feminine energy. So you can.
But they want to hear what I think.
Right. They always want to hear what you think. So you can. Then when they ask you what you think, you can answer back with a feeling. If a man asks you, well, what do you think about the war? You can say what you feel about the war. I feel horrible about it. I feel sick about it, that so many people are over there getting killed, and it's just,
you know why? Yeah, thank you, because the thoughts do come from how we feel about it.
Right.
But we just forgot about that.
But remember, I have a website on there called That Is Not a Feeling, because so many women answer, I feel that, and everything that follows that is a thought. Right, so you have to say, I feel sad, I feel happy, I feel miserable, I feel delirious. So remember that to follow feels with a feeling. Yes.
I guess I'm just a little confused as to if what you're saying is that you can't really portray both of these things. Both people can't portray both of these things and maintain a healthy communicative relationship.
Absolutely, and there's some specific tools that I teach that offer that, but it was too short of a period of time to teach all those tools. But yeah, absolutely. It's just that you do it respectfully or in a cherishing manner, so that for instance, when you're talking to a man, you're going to sort of set an appointment and say, hey, I have a thought suggestion from the feminine voice. The other person has to start answering the masculine voice.
I'm extremely
Definitely.
creative and intelligent.
Definitely.
Definitely. It happens a lot. I think if you're extremely intelligent and creative, you can switch.
You can do it.
You have to switch.
Yeah.
Or you won't be those two things in life.
Right. Because the thing is, you run the risk of dulling the sexual chemistry, because equality dulls sexual chemistry. You have to have that sexual polarity in order to keep the sizzle alive, and so that's the risk that you run when you have that convenient sort of relationship.
And that was going to be my next question then, because in terms of what's the purpose behind doing that? Because I would think, if you have two people of the same sex, or more importantly, the same masculine energy or feminine energy that can have a conversation as friends, no problem.
Right.
But
friends.
even if they're keeping the same energy, like, is the only difference in terms of this just a matter of keeping sexual chemistry?
Yeah, because friend, it can be man to man, woman to woman, but when you're keeping the sexual energy alive, you have to be masculine and feminine. You have to keep that zip going. Yeah, okay, so if we can gather all those things up together, because I want to give the raffle. Does anyone have any more questions?
Yes. Yeah. How do you integrate this approach with other more traditional ways of approaching disconnect between partners, like their backgrounds, their upbringing, and what triggers them based upon their youth and so forth?
Right. 2 different ways. You need 3 things for a relationship to really work out. You need chemistry, and that's body to body lust, right? And if you don't have that, like, stop, like, go away. Like, you two don't match right there. You need compatibility, which is kind of what you're talking about. And some of that can be negotiated, but some of it can't. And then you need communication, which is talk and touch. And I help people a lot with the talk, and then touch is obviously sexuality. So that's part of it. But then the other part of it was I do life scripts for people. I read their life script, and working on that helps them.
Look on the chair next to me.
The other part of that is I'm gonna have.
You didn't get the one with your photo on it.
Right. Oh, you know what? Look on the chair next to you.
Here you go. Here's another one.
Okay, thanks.
The other part of it is I do life script readings, which gets at those messages that I was talking about, those covert and overt messages about don't grow up, don't be you, please others first, things like that, that until they figure out some of those messages that were given to them, that they're living somebody else's life script, until they figure some of that stuff out, they can't get back to who they're authentically meant to be, either as themselves or in their relationship. And so figuring some of that stuff out is really, really helpful to getting that done. Anything else? Any other questions?
Can you have a part 2 here so that we can hear your tools and your techniques that you didn't have time for?
Thank you.
Great. I made a note of it.
Oh, okay. Yay. Okay, well, thank you guys so much. I really appreciated it. I appreciate your attention.
This needs to be a 2 or 3 part series.
Oh my gosh, you're so
Yeah,
nice.
seriously.